Hey everyone, I'm Richard and this is Grey Wizard Gaming, and in this video I'm going to be going over the basic principles that will allow you to win in Scythe. It's going to teach some just real basics and kind of give you a core strategy you should follow as you enter the game, and it's going to either allow you to play well and win, or it's going to allow you to compete with older, more existing players. There's many different ways you can win Scythe. This is not the only way. I have found this is the easiest way to get into Scythe and score well. So, with that, I'm also doing a contest where I'm going to give out 2 copies of Scythe for hitting 2,300 subscribers on the channel. So thank you everyone. And just stay till the end of the video or check out the description in the show notes, and there'll be details on how to participate. All right, now let's get into it. Okay, the core strategy is to get as many objective stars while maintaining your population as high as possible, while ending the game with your pieces on as many hexes of the map as possible. That's the core strategy. That's all you have to do. I mean, you could stop watching at this point. You now know how to win Scythe. Okay, no, that is how you win Scythe. But I'm gonna give you 5 principles to guide you towards that approach. Principle number 1, you wanna get into a cadence of acquiring resources and purchasing some sort of upgrade every other turn. That's how you start the game. And if you're behind on that, if you don't purchase any upgrades until the 3rd turn or something like that, you're really holding yourself back. And not only that, but you don't want to get into this thing where maybe you buy an upgrade right away, but then you kind of peter out and you're not able to buy any more upgrades. So the kind of upgrade you get will depend on your faction, and it will depend on your player board that you get, all of these different things. So it's very difficult to say, well, of course you should always get lumber. No, there's no which upgrade you should go for strategy, other than depending on which pieces you get will inform you of what you should get. The important thing is that you want to, in the beginning, spend a turn getting stuff, the next turn get a little bit more stuff and upgrade. The next turn get more stuff, the next turn get more stuff and upgrade. You should be able to maintain that for the first quarter, first half of the game, and then you should reach a point where you hopefully can reliably upgrade every turn. And when you reach that phase, you're going to start filling in your board very quickly. And that is only possible if you aggressively prioritize increasing your strategy, your promotional things up front. And with that, of course, you want to prioritize population or popularity. Now, the key second turn action that I typically find, sometimes first action, no, usually the first action, well, it depends on the faction. Okay, let's ignore that. So the key is the trade action. And I've noticed many new players do not take the trade action as aggressively as they should, especially in the beginning. In fact, I'm fairly confident that the reason you start with coin is primarily to operate the trade engine. Because if you start the game with oil, as in your home provinces, then it should be fairly easy by the 3rd turn that you could possibly, with the trade action, get enough oil to upgrade your technology. Or if you have grain, you should be able to get a little lieutenant sergeant guy. It's all down to trade. You can't be afraid of it. Don't be too crazy with trade towards the middle to the end of the game. You're literally taking coin, which is your victory points, and trading it for resources. It doesn't make necessarily a lot of sense, but after you've upgraded trade to give you 2 popularity instead of 1 popularity, I think it does make a lot of sense to use that trade action a couple times, push your popularity up. So trade is still valuable, but the trade for resources should no longer be valuable after the first half of the game. The second principle. All right, so I noticed that a lot of new players, even some like players who played it a few times, maybe they're not like veterans, they don't leverage the mechs and heroes ability to pick up and move workers as much as they should. So when you pick up your hero unit or your mech, you can pick up and then drop off units anywhere along the way. And so when you get these travel abilities with your mechs, whether it's speed +1 move, whether it's some sort of teleport like the Togawa Shogunate faction get, whatever you get, that teleport, that speed, whatever, pick up those workers, move, drop off the workers. With speed, it's very nice because you can actually pick up workers anywhere along the way and drop off workers anywhere along the way. So with two hexes of movement, possibly more if you're using a factory boost, then you're really able to move those workers. And the key there is that you do not want your workers to be spending a lot of move actions themselves, because that's one worker moving one space, or one worker moving 2 spaces, I guess, if you're wasting it with a factory action. So it just doesn't make any sense. You want these big diesel punk mecha to be moving around your workers. The third principle: don't spread yourself too thin trying to get a lot of different objectives all at once. At the end of the game, you only have 6 stars worth of objectives. Number 2, you don't generally have the ability to complete every possible objective on the map. There's just no reason why that should happen. Somebody else should end the game before that. So with that, you need to decide early on, not before the game starts, that doesn't make any sense, but you need to decide early on which 6 objectives make the most sense to complete and work towards that. It's very unlikely that you will be 100% correct. I always see an opportunity and I'm like, well, okay, I'm here, I'm gonna take it. But the important thing there is that if you have a choice between working towards completing an objective, meaning you could build that 4th mecha, getting an objective star, or you have some wood, spend your turn building another building, or building your first building for that matter. In that scenario, if the game ends the next turn, you could have had a whole star from the mecha, but instead now you have an extra building. You've neither finished all of your buildings and you haven't finished all of your mecha, so you get nothing for it. At most, you might get a bonus objective point or something for that building. It's not worth it. So you really need to not get distracted and focus on completing the objectives. Now, that doesn't mean you need to complete them all at once. Certain things like the villagers, the last spot or the last 3 spots change your production phase to also cost popularity. I think that means you don't want those last few villagers or workers until you're ready to basically stop producing for the rest of the game. It's just too expensive and it's counter to the core strategy of raising your popularity. So you can get right up to the end and then stop. You could just wait until mecha, you might look at all your mecha as soon as possible, but most things you could just kind of like fill it in and then finish it off later. You just watch all the other players and try to time how much time do you have left, and definitely don't don't end the game short of more than one objective. The game should end and you should be short at least one objective if you're not the one who ended it. But more than one, it's a problem. On the topic of objectives and focusing, I would recommend to new players to avoid focusing on these secret objectives. These secret objectives are often a distraction and a way to make sure that you lose the game badly. And I've seen so many people, they look at it and they say, this is great, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna focus the whole game around these secret objectives. These secret objectives are worth exactly 1 star. That's it, 1 star. I'm not sure why people fixate on them. And I did too when I first started. It's just like some sort of human nature thing. You fixate on it and then you get 1 star. So do not do that. I actually took the I took the objective cards away from a player because she wouldn't stop fixating on, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I think that I should do this other thing instead because it's going to let me complete my objective card. And I said, look, I'm going to have to take these cards away from you because until you have an engine going that's producing stuff and you've got things upgraded, like there's just no reason to fixate on this card because it does nothing for you in the middle of the game. And she scored pretty well at the end. So it just, sometimes you have to be hard on people. No secret objective cards. The 4th principle, focus on upgrades as a general rule that give you popularity. It won't be the only thing you do after you get good at Scythe, but in the beginning, or if you're having trouble scoring well in Scythe, you will not be hurt by focusing on upgrades that give you more popularity when you do things. For example, the monument makes it so that your bolster gives you popularity, or your trade can give you 2 popularity instead of 1, or when you do bottom row actions, there's a heart there. So if you unlock the sergeant, I don't know what the guy's name is, sorry guys. If you unlock the sergeant there, then for the rest of the game, anytime you do that bottom row action, you're gonna get a popularity. And anytime your immediate neighbors do that bottom row action, you're gonna get a popularity. So focusing on those first primes you for the rest of the game to continually get little dings of free popularity, often when you're just doing something that you would be doing anyways. The other thing is that when you get to these factory cards, I would recommend prioritizing factory cards that give you popularity as number 1. And if there are no cards left that give you popularity, then the next thing I would focus is on something that gives you production. Because if you can find a factory card that gives you production, then that means that you can get all of your workers out onto the board and you won't have to pay the popularity cost, because instead of doing this produce phase on your normal player card, instead you can do the produce off of the factory, which is normally like a gold coin. So there you go. That's going to set you off to have much higher scores on average, even if you're not playing that well everywhere else. The 5th principle in this video, at the end of the game, start expanding rapidly. And that means you're going to be leveraging those speed abilities, those travel abilities, the teleport abilities, whatever you have in your mecha, also in your airships. You're going to want to pick up those workers and spread out as many as you can, especially when you see somebody else is going to end the game against your will. It's not going to be you. So you spread out, and if you look, you realize you're incredibly weak. That doesn't matter, the game's going to end. If the other players decide to push your units out of your space using mecha, that's fine. It costs them popularity, which might cost them the win of the game. So you could spread out everywhere. You know, you pick up your unit, pick up both units, drop off, something like that. And what's going to happen when the other players see that you're going to get so many points for area control, then they try to push you out. But now they've pushed you out, they've caused themselves popularity, and now they're getting less points per hex. So sure, you might not have that many hexes as you wanted, but you got more points per hex. They got less points for everything because that's how popularity works. So that's a crucial aspect to it. You should obviously be trying to do the but the bonus objective, which is often like build your buildings near mines. Pay attention to those. The more buildings, the more likely you are to have control of lots of hexes. Having abilities like, for example, in a previous game where I played Togawa Shogunate, they have these traps. I put traps on their on the factory space, and the benefit there is a factory counts as 3 hexes. And so anybody who went into that space would set off the trap. They knew what the trap was at that point, but it was a -1 popularity. And then I would go back in, teleport in, push them off, and then I would reset the trap and leave. I would just leave. I think I did own it at the very end. At the very last turn, I teleported back in. But by leaving, it made it so people kind of wanted to go there, even though it screwed them. So you got to look at your faction abilities. You really want to leverage any faction abilities you have to very quickly go out. Things like going into lakes, not everybody can go into lakes. So if you can go into lakes, end the game on every lake you can go into, because that's an advantage that your faction has that you don't have to compete. All right. So that is my 5 principles of playing Scythe well. And I hope to hear from people that say that their scores were higher. Also, if you want to chime in the comments below, by all means, share your basic principles, things that new players just miss, don't take advantage of, they do wrong, maybe disagree with one of my principles, or maybe one of my principles should have been number 6 and you have a better number 5, number 4, number 3, or even number 1, whatever. Okay, so now we're on to the contest. We hit 2,300 subscribers. I'm super excited. And so I'm giving out 2 copies of Scythe. So in order to win your copy, so first of all, I'm doing the normal contest thing I do. Check the show notes. There's going to be a link. Click the show note link, and you will copy things over, paste them, click like, click subscribe, forward things, do all the different things. Each thing you do is like another entry. You can tag us on Instagram, all these different ways. And that will enter you into a drawing for a copy of Scythe. If you already have Scythe, just message me after I tell you that you've won and let me know which expansion you'd like. Heck, even the legendary box, whatever you would prefer, I will happily send to the winner. All right, number 2, that like normal, I have a second way of winning. And the way that I do this is I just ask that you contribute something creatively. And if you are liked the most by everybody else in the community and you either interest me or entertain me, then I will choose that one as the winner. And in this case, what I'm asking for is for you to design a faction that could be in a bigger version of Scythe. It could be the American faction joining the war. It could be the Aztecs. It could be Arabians. It could be anything. Be creative. You can be very high fluff. You can, I'm definitely going to ask for a hero and their pet, right? Akiko has Jiro, the monkey. Zera comes with Car, the falcon. Eagle? Hawk? I don't know. I think it's a falcon. come up with a hero, come up with a pet, companion, and some of the backstory or the rules. Rules would be pretty cool for this homebrew faction. Please don't copy and paste it from somewhere else on the internet unless you were the designer of that homebrew faction. And whoever's the most entertaining, interesting, balanced, whatever, that's who wins a copy of Scythe. So with that, everyone, I want to appreciate everyone for sticking around, and I look forward to giving out a copy. We're going to be giving out the copy March 1st, or both copies March 1st. All right, everyone. Bye.